Hi, my name is Kriya. I am 10 years old. Today is Thanksgiving Day on 2015. And I am speaking with Wilma Becker, who is my grandma. And we are recording this interview in Aiken, South Carolina. Can you tell me a little bit about your childhood?
Oh, let's see about my childhood. I had a very happy childhood. I played a lot. I remember certain things that really impressed me. I used to play a lot when it rained. As long as it was no lightning or anything, my mom just let me go outside, and I would just go out by the playground and I would swing on the swings, and I would just play by myself a lot, and sometimes I would play with friends. And I love the smell of the air when it rains, and I think the ozone in the air would give you this special smell. And I love that smell when it rains, so I always liked to play in the rain. And as long as there was no lightning, it was perfectly safe. And then the other thing I did as a childhood, I played lots of ball. And I played it kind of by myself and with the little pinky balls. And I would count to 100, or I would say the alphabet, and I would throw the ball against the wall and then under my leg. And then the other thing that I absolutely loved to do is to play jump rope. But then I took art lessons, which I really loved. I took art lessons. And another thing I didn't like as a child, my dad played the banjo, and he wanted to have a team of people that played musical instruments. So he said, "What instrument do you want to play, Wilma?" And I didn't really know. And he said, "How about a guitar?" And I said, "No." And then he thought, "Well, how about an accordion?" And I said, "Okay, I guess so." Well, I hated to practice. Oh, and I had this mean, fat teacher. And I would go there and he would yell at me, and I would cry and cry. And I said, "I don't want to do this anymore." So I didn't like that either. But my most favorite thing when I was playing by myself was to get a brand new box of crayons. They smell so good. And if it was new and they had those points on them, and I would sit there for hours drawing and coloring. I don't do so much coloring now, but I did coloring, and I love that. Oh, the other thing that I did as a child that was so much fun was to go fishing with my dad. We would get up at 3 o'clock in the morning. I didn't feel like getting up, but we would get up and we'd all put our clothes on, and it was in the middle of the night, and we would go drive to Lake I forgot the name of the lake, Wannapesacan or something like that. And we used to get on a boat, or sometimes we would go catfish fishing. And then there were fireflies like crazy everywhere. And I used to catch fireflies, used to catch fish. And then the best memory about fishing was we would come home, and my mom and dad would clean the fish and scale them, and then she would fry them in the frying pan, and man, they were so delicious. Anyhow, those are some of my really, really happy childhood memories.
Wow, that sounds really interesting. Do you have any ancestors? Where were they born?
I do have ancestors. Do you mean like my grandma and my grandpa? Oh, okay. My grandma and my grandpa, the one that were married, that were my mother's parents, came from a country called Czechoslovakia. Now today in 2015, that country doesn't exist anymore, because now one is called the Czech Republic and the other one is called Slovakia. Because during World War I, this is why my grandmother and grandfather came to the United States of America, because the Serbians and the Turks and other people shot somebody, some Austrian person in World War I, and it started the whole World War. And my grandmother, they used to have these ditches, which I watched on TV, and my grandmother used to dig these ditches. But anyhow, life was very hard for my grandmother and my grandfather. And so they decided to immigrate to this country. Well, my grandfather came first, but then my grandmother was sent back the first time because she had a baby who was sick. And then my father's mother and father also came to the United States because of wars. And my grandfather, John Sendick, wife's name was Irene. My father had a sister Mary and a sister Anne. My grandmother got a cold, a bad cold, and this was like way back in 1920, and they couldn't fix when people got pneumonia. She got pneumonia and she died when my dad was a little boy, and it was very sad. And so his two sisters ended up trying to be his mother, which was very sad. My father was very sad that he didn't have his mother. So my grandmother was she was my favorite. When I was a little girl, her husband died. We don't know why. The newspaper wrote about my grandmother because she had these 3 little children, Uncle Lou, my mother Wilma. There was another Wilma, but she died, and my Aunt Caroline, and she didn't know what to do, was learn how to repair shoes, and she turned into the shoe repairman for the whole town of Passaic, New Jersey. So she'd had this big machine that filled up the whole side of the wall, and it used to shine shoes, and it used to clean the heels. She had a pot-belly stove in the corner of store, and then she had these dried mushrooms from Europe hanging up above the stove, and they always smelled so good, and the shoe polish smelled good. And she used to let me play with the heels that she was going to throw away, and we used to go outside and we used to make hopscotch things. The sidewalks of it made out of slate like a blackboard, and I used to play hopscotch like crazy. And but in front of my grandmother's house, I loved to sleep in her bed because she had this feather pillow that was this thick, like 10 inches thick, and it was on her bed, and I used to love to snuggle in her feather bed that was from Europe. And
Wisdom about them?
Oh, wisdom. Oh, okay. This is my wisdom about them. We had a wonderful, when I was a little girl, close-knit family that everybody helped everybody, and we spent a lot of time together, and it was a good family. And I absolutely, the love that I felt from my mother and father and from my aunts and uncles was unsurpassed. I knew all those people really loved me. So my wisdom is that families should love each other and help each other and just be there for each other. That's my wisdom.